This is Blacklisted Radio. It's the 22nd day of March, 2014. My name is Doug Owen, and you can join me live Saturday morning at blacklistedradio.com, along with the others chatting there in the chat room located there for you, as well as a lot of accoutrements, a lot of different ways to be part of the show. You can also help us by following us and spreading the word about Blacklisted Radio if you enjoy the shows, including the Doomcast that we did, number 33 this week, Charlie McGrath and myself. Share those. Let other people know that you're listening to it. It's really easy. There's all sorts of little buttons and things. That's how everybody shares stuff these days. Where's your button so I can push it? So I can share. Microsoft was throwing stones at Google for sharing your information with the FBI. Hotmail has now been indicted, if you will, in the public eye for sharing your information with the feds. Not a big shocker. One of the more, I think, transparent reasons why we should be prepping for the digital takeover of just about everything and the dumbing down of the internet. That's really what we have. Not the digital takeover, but the dumbing down of the internet, and that really consolidating a lot of information because it's just so damn convenient. That's the way most things work out. Why do people do what they do? It's because it's convenient. It's because it's the easier thing to do than maybe the right or better or more productive thing to do. Anyway, I've got a lot of stuff I want to get into, a lot of tangents. You can also text this show, 512-222-3067. Let's talk about the reality of the world. Beef prices. What does it come down to? What do people want to know? Where's the beef? Beef is a great indicator. Some people use the dollar, the yuan. They use gold as a way to indice what is actually happening in the markets. I think a great way to do that, and if you go to the blacklistedradio.com chat room, you'll see some of the foodies in there discussing their morning breakfasts. It's food. Food is a huge determining factor in the quality of life, and if you're in the third world and you can't afford it, it's a big, huge issue. If you live in the United States of America or most of the Western world, you don't have to worry about food nearly as much, only in the sense that, well, actually you do, but only in the sense that it is so abundant. Now, not saying that it's great food, but with cheap, genetically modified wheat, we've been able to feed and probably give a lot of people in this country cancer over the last 60 years. But the abundance of cheap processed food is there. I mean, you can get a Twinkie and you can get a burger at McDonald's for $1. Now, is that good food? Not necessarily. Probably not. Probably will, if you eat it every day, especially when you get older. I mean, kids can eat crap. I see kids eating crap all the time. And when I was a kid, I harken back to that time when I was a child. And we ate a lot of crap. It wasn't as bad. Not everything was high fructose corn syrup. We just had lots and lots of sugar. Anyway, back to the point here. Zero Hedge has a really interesting perspective on inflation. Beef prices surged the most in a decade as food inflation soars. So for some of you city slickers out here, here's the way it works. When corn's really cheap and beef prices are really high, those that farm corn either the government subsidizes so much of it that, and now you have the onset of this push for the fuel industry to be created out of these agri-fuels or biofuels, and then that's not a great way to look at it because most of the corn it's so cheap, not because it's really so cheap, it's because it is so subsidized. And that has had just horrific consequences. Globalization and the subsidizing of food has destabilized South America. It has created food wars and riots around the world. So it's nothing to take lightly. But right here in the good old U.S. of A., you're going to be paying a lot more. They can only do so much stuff and put so many fillers and pink slime into the beef before people start noticing. So here we just start stealing Cheetos one by one. And that's what inflation does. Rather than changing the price, you say, oh, well, Cheetos are still the same price, Doug. Yeah, but instead of 35 of them, now you're only getting 24. And now here in 2014, I don't even know how many Cheetos you get or what they may be made of. Just a month ago, we warned, Zero Hedge, that food inflation was on its way. And people have been warning about this for a long time, so it's not like they had the inside track on food wars, food inflation. Just go over to, third world anywhere, and you'll see people eating mud pies. You'll see the effects of bad Western policy and economic policy primarily. Today we got a first confirmation that problems are on their way while headline data washes away the nuance of what's eating, sleeping, energy-using human beings are paying month in and month out. The fact that the Wall Street Journal reports that beef prices surged almost 5% in February, the biggest change since November 2003. So it's not unprecedented. Beef prices do go up. A lot of it, harken back to the corn. If it's really cheap, if corn's pulling a lot of money in market, then you'll sell the corn or you'll give it to the government. If it's not doing so well and beef prices are really high, then you're going to be feeding your cows that corn, or God only knows what, to be honest. But for the most part, this is the way it was 30 or 40 years ago when Grandpa explained it to Doug Owen. So, take a little bit of the science out of the equation here. It's kind of simplified, if you will. So the idea is that when corn's not that, or, feed grain is low, then you feed it to the cows. Well, that has a different consequence, and that is that those foodstuffs, and just about everything is made with corn these days, end up costing more. And beef prices, of course, are going to be much, much higher. Now, we've seen the headlines coming from the, I would say, environmental cultists. Rather than looking at real solutions, we start looking at all of the negative effects of beef. And beef is highly demonized. It's somewhat controversial to eat these days. When I was a kid, you had the vegetarians, and now and I'm 35 or 36 years old, mind you, so I was a product of the 70s and 80s. You had vegetarians, people that were eating just vegetables. That was kind of a big thing. People started exercising, something you didn't see in the 70s or 60s, really. People running and jogging everywhere or trying to get in shape. That happened really in the 80s, and I think a lot of that also had to do with the change into a sedentary lifestyle and eating pure crap food. But that shift happened, and it was more apparent. So when it comes to what people are eating and how much it's going to cost them, the move towards corn and beef has had some pretty negative effects. Now, beef is demonized by a lot of groups. They want to create, the beef that you're getting at the store, let's just clarify, a lot of that's not even beef. That's just food that has been beefed up, if you will, with corn product, with other, things. We mentioned the pink slime that they're using in school lunches as a way to sterilize the rotting flesh that they're feeding your kids. I mean, it seems somewhat dystopic, but we're really, right there. And as prices increase, people are going to be looking for new and different ways. So there's a huge moral aspect to it. They're talking about these huge cattle ranches or the feedlots. And if you go to North Texas, you'll find some of them near Amarillo, and it's pretty effing disgusting. I mean, if you've seen some of those aerial footages, those pictures of these lots, and now they're pushing forward with ag gag laws because you just see this huge cesspool of blood, like lakes and lakes of blood. It's really, really gross. But you look at the nitrates and, all of the antibiotics that they're pouring into this cattle so they can live in these closed, very consolidated lives. Not closed, but really consolidated, short lives. And it's horrible. It's really gross. So some people are like, well, we just need to get rid of beef. And if you eat beef, you're a bad person. If you eat beef, you're going to be, in the near future, probably pretty well off. if you're not eating synthetic beef, that's the next move. They've already got it. You can already synthesize a lot of things, and before you know it, sounds kind of silly now. In 10 years looking back, it will be a no-brainer that we're synthesizing and 3D printing our own foods and our own synthetic beef. It's going to be more moral. That's how they're going to sell it. It's going to be more moral. It's going to be better for you, and the economic and environmental impact will be lessened. So this is going to be a big, big push. You're going to get pushed out of eating beef in the near future, and that's if you can afford it. I mean, not even the moral aspect. Chicken's pretty crazy, too, right now. One of the guys here said that he paid $5 for a pound of beef. That doesn't sound outrageous. Go to a farmer's market. You're going to pay a pretty price for an organic hen, somewhere upwards of $13, $14. It's not too bad, but if you eat 2 of those a day, you and a family of 4 could probably eat 3 or 4 of those a day. I mean, do the math. Do the math. And do yourself a favor, too, and look at what you would pay at Whataburger or McDonald's or some other fast food chain, and you're going to see that you could probably eat a lot better if you put a little bit more forethought and care. I hear that all the time. I cannot afford good food. No, you cannot afford to not have good food, maybe mailed to your home, shipped to you. You can get good food. It's hard to get it in a lot of rural areas, but if you live in the metropolitan areas, you can usually find pretty decent food. It takes a lot more time and effort. You have to actually want to do this. And I think it's worth it because one of the most important things that we do while we live here on planet Earth is eat food. It's a staple. You have to do it every day. Good water, good food. There's no compromise. All right, so that's enough about beef and chicken and where they're going with all of that. I think it's important to note this because you're going to hear more and more about the moral and environmental obligation to not eat beef. And, you have the UN even pushing more wacky ideas, which I'm glad they are, because when you start telling people in the Western world that they need to eat cockroaches and tarantulas and fry them up, I don't care how many of those crazy shows you have where people are eating weird exotic foods, gross foods from around the world, you're gonna really, I think, push up against a rock when it comes to getting people in the Western world to eat cockroaches. In China, they're now having the new cockroach farms being put up left and right. People will eat them. It's not too bad. But apparently not too bad for those people to eat those roaches. But the pushing towards the Western world, I think, will just create more and more pushback. Because I'm not eating cockroaches. I don't care how bad it gets. I will grow my own food. I will travel the world. I will move to a new location with an abundance of food. I'll spend half of my day creating, and this is what's going to have to happen. Either, A, we have technology that's going to take us past that point, or people are going to have to put their hands right back into the soil, or you're going to have to support people that are doing that. And that's already kind of happening, with the advent of the organic food movement. Now, here's an interesting piece from Vice, their motherboard blog, that I thought was mention-worthy. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories today. Got a lot of conspiracy talk for the show. Conspiracy theorists are huge fans of local and organic food movements. If you listen to this show, you probably identify with both of these titles, or at least people identify you with one of these titles. So this comes from Ben Richmond, who's not keen on conspiracy theories, by the way, but I think that what he reports here is more interesting than his negative connotations that he puts onto you crazy conspiracy theorists. He says, I guess it isn't surprising that Americans, contentious and are swift to judge as we are prone to conspiracy theories, especially when it comes to medicine. A new survey from researchers at the University of Chicago found that half of Americans believe in one medical conspiracy theory or another. You out there, do you believe that they have the cure for cancer? 1/3 of us believe that the FDA is holding back a natural cure for cancer at the behest of the drug companies. 1/5 of us, that's 20%, believe that health officials are holding back evidence that cell phones cause cancer. Are you one of those 20%? What, 20% of people think? That's what this tells me. Anyway, at the behest of large corporations. Yes, do you think that the large telecommunications companies would not want you to know that your cell phone could give you tumors? In Canada, they're actually, I think in Australia as well, they're talking about putting warnings on cell phones that they can give you cancer. They do emit radiation. If you strap them to your heads 24 hours a day, there's going to be a negative impact. And it's not really just the cell phones themselves. It's the transmission of electrons through your body both ways. RF radiation bathing. You're already in it whether you have a cell phone or not. So for all of those that have been abstaining from cell phones because you're worried about cancer, it's kind of a misnomer. You're already getting a lot of it, but if you do have the transceiver strapped to your head, you're going to get more of it. All right, so a fifth of us believe that the government is conspiring with cell phone companies to keep us in the dark, that we have, there's a danger. We have an inherent danger from using these. Back to the article here. Another fifth believe that vaccines do cause autism and other psychological disorders, but the government and doctors are vaccinating anyway. Yes. Do you believe that the doctors are pushing? See, this, I guess, is where the conspiracy theory really lies. And it's not that, these vaccines aren't causing autism. It's that we believe there's a conspiracy to cover it up. And it's not really that there's a conspiracy to cover it up. It's just that when you're making so much money and you're paying for advertising, why would you want to scrutinize the person or corporation that's buttering your bread? Why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense to anyone ever. So it's not a grand conspiracy. It's just that when you have a media model that takes cash from who? Drug companies, thank you. A lot of money, millions, if not billions of dollars annually. They're not going to really heavily scrutinize all of the, very scientific evidence that vaccines do maim and harm people. So it's not to be one of these, and they're going after the quote-unquote anti-vaxxers. That's a big meme this week, too, with the outbreak in New York, and I think it was either in Nebraska, Kansas, somewhere in the Midwest, where they had a measles outbreak. Funny enough, they blame it on the anti-vaxxers, but you find out once you start looking into these articles, and I have, these guys had vaccines. These children had these vaccines, so it's obviously because you're propagating it with your kids that don't have vaccines. That doesn't make any sense to me at all whatsoever, because you have people that are vaccinated that are getting these. So there's two ways to look at that. Okay, number one, is it my children or your children or yourself that's not vaccinated or hasn't gone to the doctor in 50 years, so you might as well not be vaccinated anymore? Or is it that these vaccines just don't work? It's a great question, but if you dare question that and you think that there is an agenda to not tell you more about it and to keep you in the dark, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're pretty crazy, You think that the government and doctors want to endanger your health. I don't know. I don't think that they want to endanger my health, but look at what most doctors, ask them what they think of Obamacare. Ask your doctor, your physician, what they think, and you're going to find out that they believe, they're conspiracy theorists too, that the government and the insurance companies conspired to screw you and them. So anyway, there you go. That's what people are moving to. So anyway, this guy is kind of taken aback because he doesn't realize that just because you believe that the government's screwing you, that would make you more conscious about the environment. But maybe that's not what's exciting. What's interesting here is that those who held the beliefs aforementioned, medical conspiracy theorists, aren't limited to one side of the political spectrum. 35% of those who agreed with a conspiracy theory identified themselves as liberals. Wow, you damn liberal conspiracy theorists. 41% of them said that they were conservative. So more of you right-wingers out there, if you will, conservatives, believe in a conspiracy theory. But aside from believing conspiracy theories, this group did share other tendencies. They didn't wear sunscreen as often. They took herbal supplements more often. And what I found really surprising is that the more conspiracy theories they believed in, the more likely they were to buy organic or farm stand food. How about that? How about that? Crazy people that buy farm fresh food. And he goes on to say, well, there's a Stanford research that proves, and we saw it on NPR, that GMOs aren't any less healthy and organic foods aren't any more nutritious than conventional foods. In 2012, they pushed this out of Stanford. And I guess you could say if you looked at it in a very monochromatic way, if you put on the right rose-tinted lenses, you can see that, nutritionally, maybe, it has the same amount of vitamin B12 in your tomato. But that doesn't discount or negate the pesticides, the other chemicals that may be in that non-organic food. It doesn't account for the amount of diesel fuel that may be in the land because it's, mass manufactured. There's a lot of things that you don't account for. So if you look at it on a purely nutritional basis, and I think that that's what Stanford did, and that's the scientific method. You look at one issue, and then you bring that out. And then it's really the media and the blogosphere that takes that and kind of melts it. And that's what I'm doing with this article. I'm melting it down. A lot of good information, some interesting statistics. But, this guy obviously has a problem with the conspiracy theorist, quote unquote. So, Stanford did this meta research. And basically, if you're a conspiracy theorist, by and large, you eat organically. You might like organic arugula more than non-organic. You are, let's see, he goes, as I think over my conspiratorial friends who are both pro-organic and anti-fluoride, as opposed to, say, my 9/11 truther friends, it occurs to me that both impulses come from the same appeal to nature fallacy, which states that as long as it's natural, it must be better. It's the same fallacy that leads people to want GMOs labeled so they can be avoided without evidence that GMOs are any less healthy. Now, here's the deal. Okay, it's not that GMOs are any less healthy, although I think that they are. I absolutely think that they are because, I keep up with what's happening in the Monsanto realm of failures, and they're having to double up, triple up on the Roundup and the other herbicides that these GMOs were designed to help you avoid. So we didn't pollute the earth. It sounded great. I mean, if you go back and look 15 years ago, 20 years ago at these Monsanto pitches, we don't want to use arsenic anymore. GMO cotton won't have to be nearly as heavily sprayed. Well, what happened was we had the creation of superbugs that just became GMO-eating bugs, and they had to, in some cases, up to 10 times the amount of herbicide. So now we've got genetically modified food that has pesticide in the actual DNA of the products. And I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you that it's not as nutritious. I'm just going to say that I don't believe it. I don't believe it because science is often wrong. Scientists are often wrong. Scientific theory is often, it's a living, breathing science that is some of the most and wildest and most influential findings ever were by accident in the scientific realm, namely LSD. It's a perfect example. Looking for a new battery, we just found a new weapon for the CIA. Hello. Tune in, drop out, don't care, open your eyes, have a vision. Like John Lennon said, the CIA created LSD to enslave the mind, but instead he freed it. Just one example of how science, you're looking for something and you find something else completely different. And this is the same idea. You cherry pick certain genes, you splice those into different plants, and you hope to have this outcome, and you may have that outcome, and you say, wow, this is great, let's move forward because we've got a billion trillion dollar machine, whatever it may be, behind this idea or this science, and then you find out, oh, well, shit, man, this gives everybody cancer. Oh, man, there's a bunch of other problems here. The freaking super pests are eating the shit out of this, and now they're able to wipe out not just a crop or two. I mean, we're talking about state by state because all of the genes in these crops are uniform. So instead of having, it reduces biodiversity. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I'm not a scientist. And I'm not somebody hell-bent on even the conspiracy aspect. It's just business as usual. It's not necessarily a conspiracy, it's just a good business plan. But anyway, this guy will believe anything. Stanford said that it's just as nutritional. Well, don't look at it like a very, myopic issue. Look at all of the other things that affect it. It's like the economy. You subsidize corn, and it's this ongoing theory that you mess with something, and then you don't realize the outcome. And it takes a long, long time to realize that. So technology, does it benefit our lives? Absolutely. Does it help us out, and are we able to have lifespans that go beyond 65 years on average because of technology in this country and around the world? Absolutely. Did the Industrial Revolution expand our ability to live? You're damn right it did. But at what cost? So anyway, this is more conspiracy bashing, not surprising. And it's just because you have these writers that don't understand it, and they're trying to break down the psyche of somebody who doesn't trust government. And they're trying to figure out, why are these people just conscious? Why are they conscious of what they're eating? Why are they worried about that? Is it because you... And I like how he separates the 9/11 truthers here from the anti-fluoride, anti-vaccine groups. Show me vaccines that have been used for years and years and years. I don't doubt the science. I think that it's very valid. That's my opinion. I believe the science is valid. I just don't trust the companies that mass produce vaccines. And how much squalene do you need? That's a debate in and of itself when it comes to some of this stuff. Anyway, it's not just Vice.com that wants to go after conspiracy theorists. It's not just the new alt media, Roger Ailes extension, the new Rupert Murdochs that want to keep you eating whatever it is that they're selling. And they're not getting their hands in at those farmers markets. Obviously, if you believe that ultimately, as I do, money is the biggest motivator, that is why you have grand conspiracies. It's because there's a lot of money to be made. All right, so the Acting Man blog, Peter Tennybaum, I think is how you say his name, Acting Man blog, we're linked up, broke down the latest from Cass Sustein, who has made his appearance on this show often, or at least the man has made it into the discussion often. You'll like the headline, The Taming of Deluded Conspiracy Theorists. Some of you may identify with this. Look who is warning us again of the great harm about conspiracy theories and what they're doing to the minds of impressionable citizens everywhere. That's what I find to be hilarious, is that people are so worried about what you're saying to your friends and family and getting them to question things. And the truth, it doesn't have to be hidden. It doesn't have to be put on a pedestal. It can withstand scrutiny. The truth does not fear people asking it questions. It doesn't. It really doesn't. If it's the way it is, and if it's the absolute truth, then it's just evident. It's usually evident, and it withstands the test of time and the test of people like you and I out there that constantly test it. I don't know if I believe this. Keep telling me why I should. It's the job of those in the scientific community that absolutely do believe and can prove whatever it may be that they are trying to do that. The proof of burden is usually upon you. It's not upon the state. So I don't think that I'm a conspiracy theorist. I just hold reservations about the great companies out there that want to help me and my family out. Sorry, Cass Sustein. Anyway, Cass Sustein has emerged at Bloomberg to once again plead for the correction of many conspiracy theories that are disseminated on that pesky new medium, the inner tube, seemingly without inhibition, contrary to the infamous paper in which he described how to precisely combat the spreading of false information that lacks the government seal of approval. He doesn't list his favored censorship or disinformation techniques outright this time, but it is certainly implied that something must be done. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you there's a problem. So, yeah, Cass Sustein. His wife, isn't he married to Valerie? He's married to, trying to think of her name. She is the daughter of one of the ladies, or one of the head honchos at the Brookings Institute. It'll come to me. You can look him up on YouTube or Wikipedia. Maybe we should just quickly here, for the sake of keeping it accurate. We don't want to purport conspiracy theories. We're not propagators of that. Let's see. Cass Sustein. Can I spell his name? It's I before E except after C. No, that looks Hispanic. That's not right. That's not right at all, Cass Sustein. What, you don't have a wiki page? I can't believe this. Hold on. Before we start breaking down, yeah, Cass Sustein. I'll just put it into the... Oh, I know why. It makes total sense. Let's see. Come here. I'm in the comments. On Wikimedia. I'm on Wikimedia, not Wikipedia. Wikipedia.org. Sorry about this. I think it's important. I want to talk about this guy because he's very influential. Very powerful man. Family, career. He's got a long wiki here. Let's see. I'll just look for wife. No, it didn't talk about his, let's see, husband. Oh, well. No big deal. I'll find it later, Cass Sustein. It's really what you're promoting, not who you are poking. So anyway, yeah, he laid out this big plan. He wanted to infiltrate conspiracy chat rooms, some of which you may take part in. He wanted the government to regulate and tax. I love this idea. This is the best because it just shows you how morally incompetent or intellectually bankrupt this guy is, because he thinks that you can tax conspiracy theories. What the hell are you going to do? How could you regulate that? And the fact that you go out and push this message to tax conspiracy theories just shows that you don't have a plan that is actionable at all. Just throwing out stupid, crazy thoughts that really have little meaning. So with regard to conspiracy theories, back here to the Acting Man blog, there's a long history of dangerous thought entering the minds of deluded citizens. There were people who long doubted the official version of the Gulf of Tonkin, and those who believed the government's minions were capable of thinking up other false flag activities such as Operation Northwoods, or the poor confused souls who argued that Iraq's weapons of mass destruction were a trumped-up pretext for a war based on thoroughly politicized intelligence, or mean-spirited traitors who charged that the U.S. military killed a Reuters journalist and helpers in Iraq and then covered it up. Hey, those don't sound like conspiracy theories. That's just what happened. Shit happens. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't want to go into that now. Anyway, the paranoiacs who asserted that for many years the NSA was literally recording everything. The NSA is recording everything, man. No, bro, you're a conspiracy theorist. That's so dumb. So dumb. Doesn't even make sense. Why would the government do that? Why would the government do that, dog? That's what I used to always get. Oh, my God. Why wouldn't they do it? The better question always becomes, and I always throw this at people, and it's like, oh, well, like, why wouldn't they do it? If you had the ability to watch everyone, especially your enemies, why wouldn't you become Richard Nixon, huh? Why wouldn't you be a tricky dick yourself? Anyway, we incidentally even know that certain people routinely assert that scientific and utterly word-free monetary policy enacted by well-meaning central banks is harmful and favors certain groups in society over others. That's right. If you thought that the government was giving money through the Federal Reserve and making some institutions systemically influential and institutionalized and unable to fail, too big to fail, you're crazy, except for, well, the fact that, what's his face of the Justice Department, that ugly guy that looks like a rat. What's his name? Eric Holder. There you go. He wanted to brainwash people into not wanting guns anymore. I mean, he just goes on and on and on. I mean, here's a conspiracy theory, and I'll just throw it out here. And here's one for the show that's true, and it's not a conspiracy theory. CIA reportedly employed several operatives, warlords, and militant leaders deeply involved in the Afghan opium trade. Now, here's the two ways to look at it, people. Either A, they conspired to create a drug network to funnel money and influence and weapons to allies and friends, as we did in Iran-Contra, as we did in Cambodia. The operation, what was it, GoldenEye? I'm trying to think of the name now. The Golden Triangle. I mean, just Google Golden Triangle. You'll find a lot of history of the U.S. creating the CIA opium trade. Now, that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just mainline history. But at the time, if you said, well, this war is about money and influence and has nothing to do with ridding the people of communism, they would say, no, that's a conspiracy theory. 10% of this is about ridding the world of communism. There's a little bit of what we do that is the truth, and maybe that is more true. But a senior Western audit officers raised fresh concerns that U.S. funds meant to help pay Afghan police, the ones that diddle kids, salaries may instead be going to ghost workers. And I'm writing, quote, to express my concern that the U.S. may be unwittingly. And I love this because this gives you the out. Okay, well, the USA just didn't realize that the terrorists are hanging out in their tents with their logos behind them, showing off their AK-47s. It was just a mishap. We had no idea. Which is more scary? This is the deal. Which is worse? That they would have no idea or that they would actually conspire? I would say the former, that they have no idea, is even more dangerous. I mean, that's the one thing that they always say about conspiracy theories. The establishment usually says about conspiracy theorists, and that is they lack any real evidence for what they believe. That's why you believe that it's a conspiracy. But when you look at this, you say, well, I mean, what we're doing is just helping these Afghan warlords that we have to work with. It's a business plan. But if you look at mainline history, 90%, that's my statistic, I would say 90% of the things that conspiracy theorists say end up being true. So, the government has to do a better job at not demonizing conspiracy theorists for using common sense. Anyway, so the taming of common sense is really what Cass Hustine is after. And that's what it's really about. It's not that you're wrong. It's that you're dangerous because you're saying what is true, and you are. And this has been very effective. People no longer believe the establishment. And that creates a political void because if you can't control the populace and you can't control what people are, talking about, then you got a big problem. Government is not in control; it's out of control, whatever it may be. So, also consider for a moment the honest and well-intentioned politicians and bureaucrats who've advanced the schemes listed above in the national interest. It was only their selfless concern for our well-being that drove them to make a tiny mistake over here or there. By accusing them of nefarious motives, the conspiracy theorists have undoubtedly deeply hurt their feelings, and the outrage crying for the rectification. What needs to be done? Here's the plan, people. Cass Hustine certainly knows what needs to be done to ensure the Geistige is maintained. The Volksgeschund, I think, is probably German for mind control or something here. I'm not familiar with the term. Sorry. Anyway, the inner tubes must simply be corralled to reduce great harm all this conspiracy theorizing inflicts. In 2008, his paper, Conspiracy Theories, written by Adrian Vermeule, he proposed the following eminently reasonable measures. 1. Government might ban conspiracy theorizing. That's what they're trying to do in Russia. If you want to look at what Russia's model has been, that is to just demonize the fifth, the what do you call them? I'm trying to think of them. They're the fifth estate. Yeah, the fifth estate. Anyone that's daring to question the Putinists, got to go. Got to go. You're messing up the love for the nation state. You're challenging the authority of the government. It becomes a big problem. Can't get everybody behind something like Crimea. Not invasion. I wouldn't call it invasion, but the sanctioning of the West and all of the other things that are going on between the U.S. and the Ukraine. And, now Crimea is part of Russia. They did the song and dance. They got the central bank out. They used the international global community's platform there, basically, ripe for regime change model, and that is get in there, take control of the military bases, create a new central bank, have a shindig with a lot of politicians, make it seem legitimate, and have a vote. And here's the sad thing: is almost illegitimate as I think what the Russians have done. It's 10 times more legitimate than what the U.S. has done in so many cases. I mean, if you have a vote to either join Russia or join Russia later, that's not much of a vote. But here in this country, if you have a vote between a Democrat and a Republican, that's not much of a vote either. All right, so not to throw stones for any of you out there, for you Putinists that are in love with the Vladimir Putin because he takes off his shirt and he hunts bears. I know there's some of you out there. Or you just hate the globalists and the U.S. government so much that anybody that gives a left hook to Barack Obama and the Cass Susteins of the world, you can get behind. And I kind of can understand that. Okay, it's nice to see somebody, because obviously the citizens in this country and our votes don't slow down the advancement of globalization and slow down, John McCain's plan, the PNACers and the neocons, but Vladimir Putin can. So you kind of you give him a fighter's chance. You say, this guy, he's at least punching these guys that are punching us. So he becomes the enemy of your enemy. And that's why people like him, really. That's what it's come down to for most Americans that are infatuated with Vladimir Putin. All right, number 2, the government might impose some kind of tax, financial or otherwise, on those who disseminate conspiracy theories. You guys need to donate, because at some point I'm going to have to pay for talking about these issues. I'm going to have to pay money for talking about Cass Sustein. 3, government might itself engage in counter-speech, marshalling arguments to discredit conspiracy theories. I don't know. I guess the government's doing a good job of that when you've got Barack Obama going on Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis to sell Obamacare. Funny enough, they got millions of people to sign up because of that Funny or Die video. Ironically, most of them are not going to make their first payments. Millions of people are signing up and not paying. Why? Because they don't have any money. It feels good to sign up, and you want to go get that free checkup. But then when you start looking at, oh man, I got to wait 6 months before I can go get this knee looked at. Oh man, I've got a thing growing on my back, but this isn't covered, or whatever it may be. You realize this isn't a great deal, and that Funny or Die video sold me on getting Obamacare, but now it's so much more expensive and restrictive and limiting and government regulated. You're not going to get a lot of great health care. So people that have issues, those are the people that are signing up that want the health care. But that's the thing about Obamacare. The Affordable Health Care Act doesn't really get you anything that's more affordable, and the health care is actually greatly diminished in many, many cases. Some people probably are really excited about it and got a better deal. And if you did, good for you. I mean, when somebody's getting screwed, somebody's getting a good deal, and you ended up on the better side of that equation. As the ambassador to the Ukraine would say, you landed jelly side up on that deal. All right, number 4 here. Back to Cass Sustein's incredible ideas for you and I. Government might formally hire credible private parties to engage in counterspeech. Done. Already doing this. So 3 and 4 are already actively happening. It's not the government should do it. It's that the government needs to do it more effectively in his mind. But he's not going to say that because you can't say that the government's already using psyops against the people. Government might also, number 5, engage in informal communication with such parties, engaging them to help. Well, they haven't sent me a letter asking me to help them out yet. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that are in the hopper, I guess, for the U.S. government, and they're going to have to tackle a lot more of this media. This week, RT went dark on YouTube for a few moments. By the time I saw the reports that they had been taken off of YouTube, they were already back on YouTube. Some of the other things, let's see, how much time do we have here? About 10, 13 minutes. Anyway, just to continue with this, and I do want to wrap it up with the Clintons. I thought this was pretty interesting. Bill Maloney, who's a BBC presenter, newsreader, had an interview with Nick Clegg, and he was interrupted by this guy. This guy right here kind of screwed things up. And you're seeing more of these media events. During the Super Bowl, you had a guy just walk in and take the microphone away from one of the jocks there and said, 9/11 was an inside job perpetrated by our own government. Investigate it. Look at it. Check it out. This guy right here got a little word in.
Let's cross to Norman Smith because he's with the Deputy Prime Minister. Norman, over to you.
I remember.
Hi, Matthew. I'm not actually with the Deputy Prime Minister because he's had to abort our interview because we were here for...
He had to abort the interview.
A little photo op which the Lib Dems have organised to flag up their, what they say is their key tax measure, which is
I was going to say it was up their arses.
Threshold, however, so Mr Clegg was there and all his Lib Dem people were there, but the whole thing had to be aborted because... a few protesters came along and spoiled the occasion. So Mr Clegg has gone over there. I don't know whether he'll be coming back in the near future, but that was one photo op which seemed to hit the buffers, shall we say. However, I suppose
the buffers,
one thing it does
right.
flag up is the tussle within the coalition to lay claim to the raising of the lower income tax threshold, because you talk to
institutional paedophile rings operating in this country now.
Sorry,
I just asked Nick Clegg.
We're going to have to leave you.
I just asked Nick Clegg a question.
Just stand aside.
Norman, we'll cut across you there, Norman. Apologies.
That's right. International pedophile rings are running the government. They are in BBC, and BBC probably doesn't want to talk about that. Neither did Nick Clegg. But you got to give this guy the credit. He's upset. He's tired of these freaking... And that's why people believe in conspiracy theories, because the government runs cover, and so does religions, for these pedophile rings. One of many reasons why people are distrustful of government, and we know that they're compromised. I mean, if you have a bunch of people that are doing horrible sexual deviant shit in the background, they're easily compromised and blackmailed. We know the NSA's blackmailing Congress and the Senate. Just ask Rand Paul, who's turned into a war hawk, how much they know about him. But anyway, give this guy all the credit in the world. So Bill Gates has, before we go to Bill Gates, and we don't have time for Bill Gates, he spent $2.3 billion on Common Core, the new curriculum that's failing nationwide. And it's not about education anymore. It's about being right. And this has been this huge failure. And more schools and parents across the nation are raising arms to some of the idiocy of Bill Gates' educational system, considering that Bill Gates was a genius. Okay, wink, wink. He was a genius, and he didn't go to college. I don't know if you really want somebody who didn't really participate too much in school, trying to teach all of us dumb people, this kind of absolute control and privatized control. And where are all the libs? Where are you liberals that are upset by this? I'm going to slide this in because this is something that's pretty big and it's going to be an ongoing issue, and that is the missing files. Hillary Clinton and the blood dynasty that has resurrected her to power, or been the pedestal of power for her, has been her husband, Bill Clinton. But I wanted to mention this because just this week they had this big piece about, well, all of these files and all of these recordings of Bill Clinton, they might still be around, but we can't find them during his time in Arkansas. We can't find any of this stuff, and, you don't need to look into it. Very convenient, because I think all of these documents will be miraculously filed, or found, rather, and in just a few years, if one of the Clintons doesn't make it into power. You'll probably see this in 2016 if Hillary isn't president, and then people won't be that interested. But talk about a coverage of secrets. Now, is there a conspiracy? I'm going to ask you out there, is there a conspiracy to keep you in the dark about the nefarious activities of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and the Rose Law Firm? Here you go.
Bill Clinton's lawyers have circled the wagons around documents, photos, videos, and most recently, newly discovered audio recordings likened to the Nixon tapes held at the William J. Clinton Presidential Library. This follows the almost rabid security around papers held at the Butler Center for Arkansas Studies in Little Rock, documenting Bill Clinton's years as governor of Arkansas. The papers are controlled by the Bill Clinton Foundation, and the release of any documents requires the personal signature of Clinton crony Bruce Lindsay. The director of the library, Bobby Roberts, tells journalists that they have to submit in writing what specifically they're looking for and why they want it. Of course, there's no public record of what is in the library, so this makes this virtually impossible. And that's how Bill and Hillary Clinton want to keep it. No use dredging up records of Clinton's late-night visits of women brought to the governor's mansion by state troopers, or records of Whitewater, or Hillary Clinton's Rose Law Firm laundering hundreds of millions of dollars of drug money through the Arkansas Finance Development Agency, or the cover-up of a string of suspicious murders, beginning with the so-called suicides of teenagers Don Henry and Kevin Ives by laying on the railroad tracks. But now the rush is on to protect documents from being released at the William J. Clinton Presidential Library. Clinton had refused to release the documents until government watchdog group Judicial Watch sued after their Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, requests that they had filed had been ignored. Of the literally millions of documents, videos, and audio recordings, the Clinton Library has released only a scant 5,000 records, claiming that the FOIA requests don't reflect the other documents being held.
So basically it just becomes this bureaucracy where it's very hard to get anything done, and you have to FOIA request specific documents. You just can't get a trove of stuff to use as weapons against Mr. Clinton. So anyway, it's a lot of suspicious deaths surrounding them. The Rose Law Firm, of course, the assassination of Vince Foster. Many of you were probably aficionados in the criminal history in the Clinton death body count, as they call it, the death count. You can find the Clinton body count online. There's a couple websites that keep up with that. It's pretty telling. And this is the sad thing, okay? That they are conspiring to keep these documents away from the American people, because you would realize they're bad people, self-interested, they're criminals, they keep possibly murderers, probably people that have had murders ordered, they're above the law, and that just might change your impression of them. Now, here's what's sad. The fact that they cover this up and they will not be transparent about their own history should tell you, okay, it should tell any person. You don't even have to be a thinking person. It should tell a really dim-witted person that, failed out of Common Core at second grade. It should tell them that, hey, maybe these people aren't everything that we think that they may be. Little common sense might go into that equation. So yeah, there you go. This is going to be, I think, something that's going to heat up. It's going to be funny to see when Judicial Watch actually gets these documents, how much of it's redacted, or if they can get them at all, or what actually ends up coming out of it. I imagine a late night burning of documents and history. And if they do that, then, you know, they're criminally complicit and they're not allowed to, you know, this is the irony. Everything that you do on the internet, everything about your lives has to be documented, in your email provider, your company, whoever you may work with, in a lot of situations are obligated to keep all of this information legally about you. But somebody who has millions of dollars, well, I mean, if you look at the Clinton Global Initiative, billions of dollars from some of the most nefarious bad guys in the world, you would think that the scrutiny upon them would be much higher than the average American. Not so. Not necessarily the case. But, you know, you say these kind of things, you're going to have to pay money to Cass Sustein. You're going to have to, you know, go out there. It's pretty funny. I wanted to just mention Cass one more time. He went to Yale. I don't know if he's a skull and bonesman, but he probably is. He co-authored this book called The Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So he's got his own little books, you know, self-help books that he has written. One of these, this is from the University of Yale Press in 2008 with the economist Richard Thaler of the University of Chicago. Nudge discusses how public and private organizations can help make people make better choices in their daily lives. So it's not just when it comes to conspiracy theories. I mean, he's got a lot of opinions about what you need to do, what you should do. And he says, quote, listen to this, the hubris. People often make poor choices and look back at them with bafflement. We do this because as human beings, we are susceptible to a wide array of routine biases that can lead to an equally wide array of embarrassing blunders in education, personal finance, healthcare, mortgages and credit cards, happiness, and even the planet itself. You idiots. You just don't know enough. If you knew more, we could save the world. We can get you to stop eating all that beef, to start eating more government BS. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Next week, we'll have Doomcast number 34 coming your way. And also, I've got a great interview I'll be releasing Monday or Tuesday here at BlacklistedRadio.com that we did last week. Thank you so much for continuing to support the show. You can do that by going to BlacklistedRadio.com, hit the donation page, or just spread the word. That's the most important thing. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much and take care.